stand up, stick up for your clients and be headstrong about their needs and putting them first, and also being direct.
Welcome everyone to the Closing Table Podcast, real accounts from real estate professionals, brought to you by WindowStill. I'm your host, Kat Cooler, and today we are bringing you part 2 to what experienced agents wish newbies knew. We have brought together for you all sorts of great lessons from our interviews this year, from how to properly communicate with your clients to how to advocate for yourself, your clients, and your safety. And then we are also hitting on the harsh truth behind creating your own schedule, and there's so much more. We are bringing you these lessons learned by these agents the hard way so that you don't have to. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Kristin, what would you say is like one of the biggest lessons you've learned since going into real estate?
Oh, I have quite a few, but I'd say number one, social media is definitely your friend. Social media can get a really bad rap, but if you use it in the right way and stay positive and embrace it, it's free. It's an organic way to reach people, and it's just a great way to connect. In fact, my first listing came from Facebook, and it's hard to put yourself out there, but I think just getting it done is better than getting it perfect, right? So if you focus on perfection, you're never going to do it. So just start small, get yourself out there. So embracing social media was definitely the first thing that came to mind. Number two, even this year, I learned a lesson: get everything in writing. Even if the law, the real estate law states that you can verbally retract an offer or an agreement, get it in writing. That's something I've learned. Number three, this is huge, and I don't see everyone doing this. Learn to set and respect your boundaries. You have a life outside of real estate, and in this business, it can be really easy to be consumed with this job 24/7 if you let it. So really just, whether it's a time boundary, day, deadline, whatever you have that's important to you, make sure you block out your time and stick to it. Your clients, you're not going to lose the right clients over respecting your boundaries. They'll respect you more for it and know that you bring value when you are with them. So that's a huge one. And one other one that recently has come into play for me is, and it's something that I think we all should be aware of in this industry, is safety, personal safety. If your gut is telling you, geez, I don't know if I should go in this house right now or go in with this client alone, trust your gut. It's not worth the risk, and it's not worth it. So I either bring another agent, a friend or a spouse, call the local police if you need some backup. I've actually done this a couple of times where I thought I was going to a house, meeting someone there, or not meeting the client there, checking out maybe a vacant house, for example, and there were windows broken out. And I thought, you know what? There might be a squatter in that house. There might be someone in the house who shouldn't be. And so just calling the local law enforcement, they are so helpful. I felt like it was such an inconvenience, but they've told me time and time again, hey, this is our job. We're happy to help. We're going to stay until you're done. They are happy to come out. So I've had that happen a couple of different times where I've needed to call. Just don't be scared to do it. So those are some of the biggest kind of like random lessons I've learned in real estate.
I think that last one is super important. I do think we like to talk ourselves down from things a lot, like, oh no, it's not that big of a deal, but like, you shouldn't really talk yourself out of personal safety.
Yeah, right. It's kind of important. It's not worth, it's not worth risking your safety, your life, ever. Trust your gut and use the resources that you have available at your fingertips as far as safety, like background checks. So every association has different resources, but I'm a part of the WEMLR, West Michigan Lakeshore Association of Realtors, and we have a really great app where we can actually do a quick check before we meet a client. And I highly recommend using whatever resources you have before you go to meet with someone.
Ooh, that's excellent. I haven't had somebody speak to that yet, but I did speak to another agent. She's younger, 20s, talking about how she always does a consult first to like meet somebody before she just meets them at their house. And I think these kinds of things are just super important You hear
Absolutely.
stories in the news. We don't want anyone listening or here to end up as a story in the news.
Right, absolutely. Safety first.
I would say for me personally, I learned very early on that this business is not for the weak. And I really needed to toughen up a lot if I was going to do this long term. And that was my plan. And once I started learning and getting really into real estate even more, I began to become like even more interested in it. So it wasn't something that I ever at any point in time was like, oh, I can't do this or no. I just knew like I had to toughen up. I really did because it can be very emotional. It can be very, very tough. It's a grueling process. It's mentally it's like your mind is on a marathon, to get from the very beginning of this all the way to the end. Sometimes it's a whole year. Sometimes it's over a year. And then when you're down into the nitty gritty of it, when you're in the intense period of negotiations, that's probably the biggest lesson for me was just being tough and knowing how to also just stick up for your clients and be headstrong about their needs and putting them first, and also being direct. Don't beat around the bush. I don't beat around the bush with any of my clients. I'm very direct with them, and I do it in a way that's tactful and in a way that I can explain so that it makes sense of why I'm saying these things. I'll be very direct with my clients, and I will point out structural issues with the home. I will point out things that they should be aware of, and I will point out things too about their loans and about their interest rates. Now, these things are my client's personal business. And I always tell every client that your financial business is your own business. It's not mine. As a realtor, my job is to facilitate the transaction, help you find a home and close on it and to negotiate for you. But my clients very quickly realize and feel that this is a safe space with me, and they want me to know what's going on with their lender and with their finances because they want my professional and my expertise, like they want my expert eyes on it so that I can find out like, hey, why are your fees so much? Like, what's your lender doing with this? Why are, and let's see if we can get those numbers down. And, so the other thing about being tough too is just being able to call people's bluff and say like, put up or shut up, like, like you're buying this house or you're not, and with sellers, talking about like to their buyers, like you're either taking the house or you're not, and sometimes it is what it is, and you just have to get tough like that, and there's no more nickel and diming over things. We have to just get it done, and somebody has to take that stance. So I will take that stance, and not only that, but standing up to other agents too, because there's a lot of agents that will get nasty with you, or they'll try to tell you things that are just not right at all, and I don't take shit from anybody. So I've learned how to stand up against these people. Well, stand up to these people, not against them, because we're not against each other. We're actually I'm always focused on my clients and doing what's best for them, even if it means I'm working with an agent that's not working well with me. That's just the reality of the business. But I have a very strong backbone, and I don't take any crap from anybody. And I have had to tell some other realtors like, what's up? I had to tell them like, and they've been very good life lessons for me that have translated into many aspects of my life. So that is one really valuable lesson that I've learned. And another lesson, this is just a quick one, like this is just for like rookie agents out there. Just a piece of advice. If you're a brand new agent, one of my best pieces of advice that I can give that I've learned the hard way is if you're talking to people about what their home is worth, always let them answer you first. Everybody has a number in their minds of how much they think their home is worth. They always do. And they might have like a ballpark idea, maybe nothing concrete, but they always have a number in mind. And you always want them to say it first. Now, a lot of times they'll say, Lianna, what do you think my house is worth? And I will just say, well, I have kind of an idea. Even I have a great idea. I have a really good idea. I already know. I did all my homework. But I just say, I have a good idea. What do you think it's worth? And I always put the question back on them, and I will not answer it unless they answer it first. Because I learned the hard way that if you answer it first and that number is insulting to them, they're not willing to listen at that point. Of how you arrived at that number, they're just flabbergasted. That's not always the reaction you get, but it can happen. And so even if you're talking to people who aren't ready to list their home right now, I had one woman, she was saying, what do you think my home is worth? And I said, well, what do you think it's worth? And I already knew in my mind that it was worth maybe 285, 290. She said, oh, I think it's worth like 300. So I knew that she wasn't ready to list her home anytime soon. We were just having a conversation. That wasn't the appropriate time for me to say, hey, here's all my data, and this is why it's only worth this much, and let's talk about pricing strategies. Like, that's a conversation you have when you're going to list a property. But since I knew that she wasn't listing anytime soon, I just said, you know what? Yeah, you do have a pretty good idea. You're not too far off. You're in the right ballpark. And she loved hearing that from me, and that helped us build that a stronger connection and relationship. And I know that she is going to contact me one day when it is time to list her home. And the reality is 6 months from now, her home will be worth $10,000 anyway. Like, so it wasn't worth like ruffling any feathers.
Have you ever had anyone be like very, very off? And then how have you had to handle kind of that awkwardness?
Yes, I have. I have early in my career as a rookie where I made that mistake of like blurting it out and then them being like appalled that the number was so much lower than they thought. So that was how I learned my lesson, not to do that anymore. But when I do have that conversation, because you have to have that conversation, and sometimes it's not an easy conversation and it's not what the sellers want to hear, but we have to talk about it because it's business. So when we do have those conversations, I come very prepared to show them. I bring them concrete evidence, things that they can see for themselves so that they can understand. And sometimes that may even involve, I did take one seller of mine on showings with me because I said, you need to see what's out there because you haven't been in the market in years and you need to know what you're competing with and how these houses measure up to yours. And the best way you can know that is by seeing it. So there are a lot of times where I'll go by myself and I'll go to other competing homes in the area for my own research. But there was a time where I did bring a seller with me, and I would do that again in the future if I felt like it was necessary for my seller to see. But I present them with tons of information, irrefutable data and evidence so that they could see for themselves where they really fall. And then we can be honest and we can have a good conversation about going forward and what can we do to put more money in their pocket and what are some of the ways that we can, list it or present it in its best light so that we can get closer to the number that they need to be at. And I will come with proposals and I will come with estimated seller proceeds worksheets so that we can really see what their closing costs and everything is going to cost, and including upgrades, remodels. We'll talk about what upgrades are worth doing and what isn't. And so it's not a scary conversation to really have anymore at this point in my career because I know it's just part of the process.
What are some of the biggest mistakes you see other agents make?
Not knowing their clients and then not fighting for their clients the way that they should. I've been on the listing side where I get no communication from an agent, an offer just pops up and they don't know where the other offers are. And, and I feel bad because there was one time where I met clients at an open house. They said, oh, my agent will get back to you. And the agent never did and just kind of shot out an offer. And at that point, we were already so far past the terms of their current offer that they had already lost. They had the cash, they were ready, they were financially well. So I felt really bad for them because their agent truly lost them the house. They did, they lost them the house. And that's unfortunate, right? I've also seen, listing agents who don't answer their phone when there's a listing. not my preferred method. So, but the biggest thing I also see with the agents in general is just that they give up too soon. Like newer agents, this is very difficult, right? Um, Real estate is difficult, and I think that surround yourself with good people. But if you give up too soon, regardless, then you're not going to build the pipeline that you need to be a successful real estate agent. So, patience.
What are some of the biggest mistakes you've seen agents make?
Lots of them. I think when there's so many people out there that think when you get your real estate license, myself included, that everyone you've ever known is going to call up your phone and say, "Hey, I want to buy a house from you," or "I want to sell my house with you." And it just doesn't work that way. It really doesn't. Specifically, if you start at a young age, like I did, my sphere of influence, my friends were not purchasing or selling homes at the time. And then, my parents' circle or, my coworkers truthfully didn't trust me yet because I hadn't done any business. And you can post on social media that you're the best and that you're willing to do this, that, and the other. But until you actually get out there and go through the transactions and see the changes and how things happen, I think it's tough. It can be very tough and it can be very isolating. I think it's hard for independent agents, especially. And I know there's a lot of brokerages out there that will, if you come on as an independent agent, they will tell you, "Hey, we're going to mentor you. We're going to train you." But they also have like 50 other agents to train at the same time. And they're training you on contract knowledge and, "Hey, here's how you go to an open house and here's how you door knock." And that's all great, but they're not really helping you to build your business. And that's kind of that consistent flow that you need to continue your growth, is knowing how to build your business, knowing how to allocate your budget that you're investing into starting your business. Having the right mentor, a person with the same mindset and mentality is very, very crucial to the growth of your career. And I think there's a lot of agents out there that don't necessarily go to the correct brokerage or take enough time to interview all of the brokerages and all the teams and all the options that are out there, because I think that really dictates how you begin your career. And I think there's unfortunately a lot of agents that get their license and they're not doing as well as they had hoped in the first couple of months, and they get frustrated and they leave. And it's not because they're a bad agent or they don't have the ability to do it, but it's more so because they are in the wrong place. So I think that's the biggest mistake that I see agents make, along with thinking, "I'm going to do real estate because I can make my own schedule and I'm going to make all this money and it's so easy." Truthfully, real estate has been my hardest job yet. It's every single day is a challenge. Every single home that you sell is a different personality type of your clients, a different personality type of the agent that you're working with on the other side. And also you overcome new challenges, right? So I've never had a transaction where it was exactly the same as the other. You learn something new with every single one. With every single one, there will definitely be a question that you don't know the answer to, no matter how long you're in the industry, right? So it's also adapting to the ever-changing market and understanding that there's so much that goes into it on the back end that people don't see, and putting in that work every single day to get yourself to the point where you're comfortable and financially, comfortable to do what you need to do to maintain the growth of your business.
I hear that a lot about schedule, that's kind of like the number one myth, is like making your own schedule. How have you kind of managed your time to, support the growth of your business?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So, truthfully, yes, you can make your own schedule, right? If I want to go get my nails done on a Tuesday at 2:00, I can. If I want to go on a vacation tomorrow for a week, I can. But then things tend to fall short, right? So you really need to be very conscious of when you're working and not working. However, there is not one day since the day that I started that I have not worked. And when I say that, I don't mean I'm sitting in front of my computer for 8 hours a day. But I mean, I'm on the phone with clients, I'm, answering questions, I'm doing showings, I'm at listing appointments. My phone rings at 11:30 at night and it rings at 5:30 in the morning. I think the way that I have given myself some grace over the years is I've learned you can't answer everybody at the drop of a dime. And if you do, they're going to expect that throughout the lifespan of your relationship with them, right? So if somebody texts me with a question at 5:30, unless the house is burning down, I'm not answering. I will answer at 7:30 or 8 o'clock or a more appropriate hour. So that way, if it happens again, where the next day they text me early, well, now they know, well, Tori probably won't answer me until 8 o'clock, right? So you have to set boundaries for yourself. And there was a point where I wasn't, because I was so scared to lose a client. I was so scared that if I didn't answer, if I wasn't there at their beck and call, that they would go find somebody else. There's so many agents in each market. It's so oversaturated. Everybody has a license. Everybody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who's an agent. There's a statistic, I don't know where I saw it, and I don't know if it's accurate, but for every person out there, they know at least 5 real estate agents, right? So I was so fearful that I was going to lose my clients if I wasn't there for them. But I realized that I was burning myself out, same way we discussed with my agents. And when you burn yourself out and you're not the best version of yourself, then you can't provide any value to your clients at all. So I always make sure that I'm just setting those boundaries. And in the hours that I'm working, which is typically always, but in the hours that I'm working, I'm providing them with the most value that I can.
Do you recommend for agents, or maybe do you do this to yourself? Do you make your clients aware of your boundaries? Like, hey, like you can text me at 5:30 in the morning, but I will answer between the hours of, I don't know, 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., whatever, something like that. Do you recommend that?
For me, I don't mention that, because I don't want them to think that they're walking on eggshells with me. That's not the type of person that I am. And not that that's an appropriate boundary, but it's almost like, if you're in corporate America and you send an email to somebody at 5:30 in the morning, chances are that person's not going to email you back until 8 or 9 when they get into the office. So I try to just maintain that same mentality in my business, but I don't set the boundaries because I never want anybody to feel discouraged to work with me.
Cool. I would think I see that side, and I could also see the other side of the person being like, oh my gosh, but they haven't texted me back yet. So I could see how some people it could work and how some people it could fall short.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because one thing I do say during my initial consultation is I always say, like, if you do not hear from me, I'm not ignoring you. It just means that right now I'm not available. I will always get back to you. And at the latest, it will be 24 hours, and it never gets to that point. But I do set that expectation that I will always get back to you. If I don't answer you right away, it's not because I don't want to. It's not because I'm ignoring you. It's simply because I do manage a team. I do have other clients, and I do have a life, right? So I am a human. So if I don't get back to you right away, I promise you I will. And I'm very good about that. I mean, my clients are incredible. They are so incredible. And when they respect those boundaries, it makes you want to cross those boundaries so much more, right? Because they're just so respectful of my time and understanding that I too have a life and a family and things that I need to do on my own. So I'm very appreciative of that.
Thank you for listening to the Closing Table podcast, brought to you by WindowStill. I'm Kat Schooler. Please be sure you're following our podcast on Apple or Spotify, and if you're part of our YouTube audience, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're enjoying our podcast, please feel free to leave us a comment or review. It helps us find more amazing listeners like you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.